Most people renovating a house find mold, maybe bad wiring, maybe a mouse. These people found loaded guns aimed directly at their bedroom, a children's room sealed behind a wall for 50 years, a diary from a woman who vanished mid-sentence in 1943 and was never found, a room full of mannequins, all facing the door, locked away for 4 decades. 10 real discoveries, all found inside walls, all deeply, genuinely disturbing. Let's get into it. Number 10. The living man in the wall. In 2016, a woman in Tulsa, Oklahoma called police after noticing a strange smell coming from inside her home. Officers searched the house and found nothing obvious. Then one of them heard something, a faint sound, coming from the wall. They pulled back the drywall and found a man, alive, wedged inside the cavity. His name was Terry Paris. He'd been in there for days. He was dehydrated, weak, and had to be helped out. Paris told police he had climbed into the wall through the attic to hide. He was a known acquaintance of the homeowner and had apparently been in the house before. He was charged with trespassing and drug-related offenses. The homeowner had been going about her normal life, cooking, sleeping, watching TV, with a full-grown man hidden inside her wall the entire time. Number 9. $182,000 in cash. In 2019, a contractor named Bob Kitts was hired to renovate a bathroom in a home in Cleveland, Ohio. While pulling out the old medicine cabinet, he found something tucked behind it, a tin box, then another. Both were stuffed with envelopes. The envelopes were filled with cash. He and the homeowner counted it, $182,000 total. The bills were old, dated to the 1930s. Written on one of the envelopes was a name, P. Dunn. Research traced the money to a man named Patrick Dunn, a Depression-era owner of the home who had clearly never trusted banks. He died never telling anyone where his savings were. What followed the discovery got messy fast. The contractor and the homeowner ended up in a legal dispute over who the money actually belonged to. They eventually split it, but after legal fees, neither walked away with nearly as much as they'd hoped. Number 8. A loaded arsenal pointed at the bedroom. A family in Illinois was remodeling their home when they cracked open a wall and found guns. Not one, not two. 14 firearms, rifles, shotguns, handguns, all loaded, some positioned directly toward the wall that backed onto the master bedroom. The family immediately called police. Officers confirmed all weapons were live. The house had changed hands several times over the decades, and investigators were unable to determine who had placed them there or why the weapons were aimed in that particular direction. No charges were filed, the guns were seized, the family finished the renovation but reportedly sold the house shortly after. Number 7. A time capsule with a dark letter. In 2019, workers renovating a school in Detroit found a sealed metal box inside one of the walls. Inside was a collection of items from 1968. Newspapers, coins, a class photo. Standard time capsule stuff. Then there was a letter. Handwritten. The letter described growing tension in the city, referenced the 1967 Detroit riots, and ended with the writer saying they weren't sure the school or the city would survive long enough for anyone to ever read the words. The person who wrote it was a teacher. She died years before the box was found. She never got to know it was opened. Number 6. A children's room sealed behind a wall. A couple buying an old house in upstate New York during a 2013 renovation broke through what they assumed was a standard interior wall. Behind it was a fully intact children's bedroom. Small bed, toys on the shelves, faded wallpaper with cartoon animals. Everything was left exactly as it was, like whoever lived there had simply walked out one day and someone had sealed it up behind them. The previous owners were deceased. Neighbors remembered a child who had lived in the home many decades prior. Nobody could explain why the room was walled off, no crime was connected to it, but the couple who bought the house said they couldn't sleep in it after that. They listed it again within the year. Number 5. A diary from a woman who vanished. During a 2017 renovation of a Victorian house in Bristol, England, workers found a small journal tucked inside a wall cavity near the fireplace. It belonged to a woman named Margaret, and the entries spanned from 1941 to 1943. The writing was personal, daily life, wartime fears, notes about a man she clearly loved and hadn't heard from in weeks. The last entry was mid-sentence. It just stopped. Local historians looked into the house records. A Margaret had lived there during that period. She disappeared from official records in late 1943. No death certificate, no new address, no record of her ever turning up anywhere again. The diary now sits with a local historical archive. The last entry is still unfinished. Number 4. A snake nest of over 100 reptiles. A family in Idaho bought a home in 2009 and within their first week noticed something strange. Their dogs were acting erratic. There was an odd smell in the walls. Then one morning, snakes started appearing on the floors. Pest control was called. What they found inside the wall cavities was one of the largest in-wall snake nests on record, over 100 garter snakes living inside the structure. The house sat on what used to be a major snake hibernation site. The snakes were getting in through the foundation, the family abandoned the home, the bank eventually repossessed it. The house went back on the market, it sold again, to someone who apparently didn't ask enough questions. Number 3. A confession note. In 2004, a man demolishing an old house in rural Pennsylvania found a folded note tucked behind plaster. Written in faded ink, it read, "I did it. God forgive me. No one will ever know." There was a date, 1952, and initials, but no full name. No crime from that year in that area was ever definitively linked to the note. Investigators looked. They found nothing conclusive. The note is real. The confession may be too. What it was confessing to, nobody knows. Number 2. A room full of mannequins. Workers contracted to gut an old commercial building in Chicago in 2011 broke through a false wall on the 3rd floor and found a sealed room. Inside were over 30 mannequins, all positioned facing the door. The room had been sealed for an estimated 40 years. The mannequins were dressed in clothing from the 1960s and 70s. Some had wigs, some had been given painted faces. No records explained who put them there or why. The building had passed through multiple owners. Nobody had claimed responsibility. The mannequins were removed and disposed of. Workers on the crew reportedly refused to re-enter that floor alone after the discovery. Number 1. The walled-up punishment cell. In 2015, during a major renovation of a historic manor house in Devon, England, contractors discovered a tiny room inside what appeared to be a solid stone wall. The space was barely large enough for one person to stand in. Iron rings were bolted to the stone. Deep scratches covered every surface, clearly made by human fingernails. Historical records later suggested the manor had a history of housing individuals considered difficult or mad by the standards of the 18th and 19th centuries. Family members, sometimes servants. The scratches were counted by a historian brought in to document the find. There were hundreds of them. Some walls, it turns out, were never meant to be opened. That's a wrap. If any of these had you looking at your own walls a little differently, that's fair. Drop your reaction in the comments. And if you've ever found something weird during a renovation, we genuinely want to hear it.